they're very laid back. So one of the stigmas in Norwegian culture is if you talk to somebody that you don't know on the street, they look at you like you have three eyes. They get really uncomfortable talking about their religious beliefs, especially if they don't know you. They also really love their coffee. It's another thing that we run into is that Scandinavians in general drink more coffee than the majority of the world. There's a coffee shop on every corner, it seems like. They love Christmas. Christmas is celebrated for, it seems like a month. The whole month of December and even January, they're still stuck in their Christmas mood. And that's something I really enjoyed, that Christmas is really focused on. Even if it's not, centered on Christ, they still love the Christmas spirit, which was really, really nice. They are very proud of the fact that they invented skiing. And so if you're a Norwegian and you don't at least know how to ski, you're a black sheep. So they'll always go, and on the weekends or even during the day, they'll go and ski or cross-country skiing, not even downhill. Just being on those skis in the snow is something that every Norwegian has ingrained in their blood, it seems like. They love to travel. They really have an appreciation for the whole world to travel in, and they have the money to travel, and so they utilize that. And that's something I wish I had more opportunity to do. A lot of the older generation of Norwegians, especially the older women, they would always love that we were respectful. Because, I don't know if this is just the older view, but they feel like the younger generation is kind of becoming disrespectful. And so there would be so many old women who would come up to us and be like, oh, I wish all of our youth were like you guys. And so if you're just respectful, a lot of the older generation of Norwegians really appreciate that. Because they feel like that's something that's kind of been lost. It seems like every week there's some other kind of tradition or holiday that they have. And so they find any opportunity they can to get off work and to just have a party, or some kind of get-together. Whether it be, the second day before Easter or just some random day that they celebrate for school graduation or anything they can find just to be with their families and with their friends is something that they really value. And one of the things I treasure most about going to Norway was the relationships that you make. I mentioned before about how Norwegians have that wall, and it's kind of hard to break down the wall. But once you break down that wall, there'll be your friend for life. And there's one lady in particular who, it was in my very first area, and she was our landlord, and we lived in her basement. And she would invite us up every night after we were planning to come in, have cake or give us some soda or things like that. And we'd go up there almost every other night after planning just to talk to her. And it was her and her husband, and I think they were probably in their 60s. And so after 4 months of visiting her 3 or 4 times a week at nighttime, she quickly became, as she likes to call it, my Norwegian mom. And I treasure that relationship just because she's about as Norwegian as they come, and you can just feel how she treasures the relationship, and she's not the abnormal Norwegian. Every Norwegian is like that, where once you get on their good side and they trust you enough, and they'll do anything for you. And that's something that I really liked about Norway, is that the friendships are really important to each and every one of them. Staple foods in Norway are fish and potatoes. So if you don't like fish when you're going to Norway, you'll like it when you leave. They have the best fish in the world. It's fresh, it's delicious, and you'll learn to love it. So for every meal, they'll have either fish or some kind of, meat, like beef or chicken. But there's always potatoes and vegetables, and they always put some kind of sauce on it. So a lot of people would say that Norwegian food is bland, but I feel like they're just, they don't have as many strong spices there. So I had one Norwegian try and explain to me that they thought ketchup was spicy. So that kind of gives you an insight of how they view their food. It's very mild, but it fills you up and it's delicious. So they have lots of different kinds of traditional food for Christmas. A lot of lamb, like salted lamb or pork. that's roasted, or the infamous lutefisk. It's fish that's soaked in a poison, lye, and then they dry it out and cook it. And it's disgusting, but it's something that all Norwegian people love, whether they like it, the taste, or not. So it's something that they're really traditional with their food. So some foods they'll say, no, we don't eat that until Christmas, and they'll stick to that. They eat a lot of soup, because it gets kind of cold there, and there's nothing better to warm yourself than soup. Staple food is fish and potatoes. I had more potatoes on my mission than I'll ever care to admit. But there's worse things to eat than potatoes. So obviously the winter, you have to be prepared for anything, because it's going to be freezing. And so Norwegians, they adapt very easily to the seasons without even thinking twice about it. So in the fall, it'll be raining. It's usually raining in the fall, or on a very, very rare day, it'll be sunny. But it's beautiful, and so you always have to be prepared to have a jacket in your backpack, because it may start raining or it may start snowing, so you always have to be prepared to add layers while you're out. And you'll just see Norwegians just grab random things out of their bag and just start layering up in the middle of the day, just because they realize that the weather could change at any moment. Transportation is something that I really miss. In Norway, you don't necessarily need a car at all. You can use public transportation or even walk anywhere you want. And so in one of my cities, Bergen, we lived closer to the chapel, which was outside of the city a little bit. But it wasn't a problem, because we could walk to the tram or the train and take the train into the city every day, and it takes like 10-15 minutes. The buses go anywhere. You have a bus map, and you can figure out where you want to go, and the buses are very easy to find, and hardly ever got lost in Norway. So public transportation is something that's very, very efficient, and it's something I wish we had in America, because it'd save a lot of money instead of driving around in your car. The standard of living is very high in Norway. I never lived in any apartment where I felt like I was living really poorly. It was always something that I was like, okay, we're always taken care of in Norway. The government takes care of its citizens. Even if you're poor, they always will give you somewhere to be with a roof over your head, which is really, really nice. But if you have money in Norway, your houses are phenomenal. They may not be as big as in America, but they're just nice. They have nice things. So that's also something I like, is that they don't necessarily go out of their way to have something big. Instead of going bigger, they just go nice. Have nice things instead of like America. They always make fun of us for having everything that's supersized. It's a beautiful country. I've never been in a modern city in Norway that's dirty. Norwegians respect their cities, and they always go out of their way to pick up trash that they see on the ground. And so you'd be walking around, and it's amazing to think how many people are in the city at one time, and it's practically spotless, which was really nice to see. It seems really intimidating because it's closer to Finland, the country is, and everyone hears about how hard Finnish is. So when I got my call to Norway, everyone was saying, you're going to have such a hard time learning that language. But in reality, I didn't feel like it was that difficult. Obviously, learning a new language is hard no matter what language it is, but there's a lot of similarities to English, and it's a Germanic language, and so if you have any connections to German, learning Norwegian won't be as difficult. The grammar is different than English, but it's not as difficult as you may think. It's very simple. There's very few rules, but the one rule, or the few rules that they do have, are pretty easy to mess up. And so as long as you focus on learning those basic rules, then the grammar is not that hard. The hardest thing about learning Norwegian is the pronunciation. It's very easy to speak grammatically perfect Norwegian, but sound 100% like an American. So they'll understand you, but they'll know right off the bat that you're an American, and that's something that most Norwegian missionaries, especially that are American, get frustrated with, because we all want to master the language, but getting those pronunciations things down is really hard. And one of the reasons for that is that there are so many dialects in Norwegian that they just tweak the pronunciation just a little bit, that it's hard to master one set of Norwegian dialect. But that's one of my favorite things about the Norwegian language is the dialects, because depending on how someone speaks, you can understand and determine where they're from. So the west coast of Norway, you can hear a lot of like the guttural, like scarring of the R's, and then in Oslo they roll the R's. That's kind of the general thing where you can tell at least what part of Norway they're from, and that was really interesting to see. And it's fun because we can all understand each other. It's not different enough where it's a new language, but it's just different enough to make it unique. And I thought that was really fun. Ok, til alle de norske vil bare si at jeg savner dere masse. Jeg tenker på dere hver dag. Men jeg ser opp til dere. Det vanskelig å være en nordmann som en mormon. Men jeg vil bare si at jeg er takknemlig for det som dere har gitt meg, de opplevelser og de velsignelser som dere har gitt meg. Jeg setter veldig mye pris på det dere har gjort for meg. Og jeg ber for dere ofte. Og jeg vil bare vise min takknemlighet for medlemmer i Norge. Dere så fantastiske, og det klart at det vanskelig å holde norsken i USA, men jeg prøver. Jeg vil tilbake til Norge en dag, og jeg vet at denne kirken sann, og at Jesus Kristus ved siden av enhver av oss. Og det en ting som jeg tenker på ofte.